Brilliant. Well, in the interest of time, I think we can probably go ahead and start. Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our latest briefing, which looks at the new hospital program. So we've got 1 hour set aside for today, and we're going to start the session by providing an insight, as you can see on your screen, into the new hospital program, the overarching strategy, look at key priorities, pipeline of opportunities, and then we're going to sort of take an in-depth look at the work being led by the digital workstream and see if you've got any questions for our presenters. I'm therefore delighted to be joined today by Sarah Thomas, who is the Digital Director for the new hospital program, and Matt Gardner, Head of Digital Transformation. We'll start with their presentations and then we'll have a Q&A. To ask any questions, please use the Q&A function, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. You can sort of put the questions in throughout the session and we'll get to them to the Q&A, which will be at the end. I think we've got sort of 20 minutes or so set aside for that. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention was that we will share the slides today and we're also recording this session in case you want to revisit it at a later date. There will be a write-up too, so plenty of resources that you can return to after the session as well. So with that having said, thank you so much once again for joining us, and I'll now hand over to Sarah to get us started.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you. So yes, just a short message to everybody to say good afternoon and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. We're really excited about the opportunity to kick off what I hope will grow into a strong partnership between the new hospital program and our digital suppliers. Our ambition is large, but I do believe that working together it is achievable. It goes without saying that collectively we have vast knowledge in the complexities and the challenges the NHS faces both today and into the future. And I'm sure we will agree that transformational opportunities the new hospital program provides will contribute to improving the lives of patients, staff and families. We're going to spend the next 40 minutes or so providing you with a brief overview of the program, its challenges and how we are intending to overcome those challenges through the development of strong partnerships with our trusts as well as our suppliers. Technology is a key enabler to the success of this program. We're embedding digital throughout all stages of the build cycle, right the way through to ensuring our buildings are digitally operational from day one. Matt Gardner will be taking you through our high-level digital approach today, and we will then spend a bit of time discussing next steps of engagement with the market. So thank you very much for joining us, and I do believe we're now going to move into a short video and then we'll continue with the slides. Thanks.
Just 1 second, I believe we can't hear the sound. So Rachel, if you don't mind sharing your slides, your screen again, and hopefully it will work next time. Just bear with us, everyone, 1 minute. No, it's still not working, unfortunately.
Just make sure that the enable play sound box has been selected when you hit the share screen.
Brilliant. Well, while we're sorting that, as I
now more than ever,
there we go.
We need to care about public health care. And so the government has committed to build 48 hospitals by 2030 as part of the largest hospital building project in a generation. This is the new hospital program. To realise this Herculean ambition, we need to build at an unprecedented volume of critical healthcare assets. And we need your help. Using a design process that has modern methods of construction at its heart, we need to foster innovation and bring the right people and teams together, leaning on your knowledge and know-how. Together, let's build flexible hospitals of the future, for the future, and tomorrow's generation. Ensuring ultimate collaboration throughout the supplier ecosystem, we want to call upon the knowledge and know-how of the widest breadth of suppliers. Learning from our previous success of executing large-scale infrastructure projects, we're forming new markets and bringing our suppliers' skill and experience to support a wave of innovation in project delivery. By adding true value in line with the construction playbook, our ambitions aim high in relation to social, economic and environmental sustainability. We're leading the digital space, engaging with the full supply chain early and extensively across the UK and beyond. We want to understand the constraints and risks of the market. We want to build capacity and support internal investment. We need new methods, new participants, and new investments to grow and move forward together. The ultimate ambition underpinned by the ultimate sentiment of trust, transparency, and openness. And we understand how important it is to be informed as early as possible, every step of the way. Be part of this national endeavour and this historic journey, for today and for our children's tomorrow. This is only the beginning. Now more than...
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So as the video alluded to, we are here we're building 48 hospitals by 2030, and this is the biggest hospital building program in a generation, which is jointly sponsored by the Department of Health and Social Care and NHS England. Next slide, please. Excellent. So I think what's important here too is that we focus on the fact that this is a transformation program. Although fostered from infrastructure and NHS estates, the opportunity here for us to transform and support the NHS in delivering healthcare for the future. We've tasked ourselves, or we've identified 4 objectives to this program, which is about building the national capacity. So you'll see on the right-hand side the spans of the geographical locations of our 48 trusts, but also this is about high quality and sustainable care. We're looking to ensure our hospitals are intelligent hospitals, laying the foundations for interoperable and intelligent systems. And we're also looking to be delivering better, faster, and providing that sustainable legacy that people can use for years to come. Next slide, please. Thank you. But recognizing also that the scale of our ambition means a business as usual approach is not viable. So we are looking at ways to disrupt this, to change this, and to bring new ways of working into this program. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you. We're also recognize we are establishing ourselves in a challenging geopolitical landscape, compounded by the war in the Ukraine, which, as we are all very familiar with, this is impacting the supply chain and causing a lot of pressures across the system. We are also establishing ourselves in a busy market. So we are working alongside some similarly, essentially large infrastructure programs, both in the transport, utilities, education, and prisons environment. This is putting a lot of pressure on commodities, production capacity, and labor. I think this is also important to say that not only are we competing with the in the same labor pool as these large programs, but there's also an amazing opportunity here for us to collaboratively work with these programs and gain our lessons learned. Next slide, please. The NHP is looking to source from markets with suppressed appetite, so recognizing that there has been a historic underinvestment in this space, therefore putting pressure on or lack of national development of national capacity over the last decade or so. So this is proving to be challenging for us, challenging for our stakeholders, and ultimately creating a complex client landscape. So NHP is going to be asking for more of the market than its current capacity. And so therefore recognizing that if we do follow the current business as usual approach, we'll be asking more of the market than it's currently capable of delivering. But also that we are going to be requiring a significant amount of expansion in that market capacity to be able to deliver the volume that we are looking at across the timeline in which we need to deliver. Thank you. So this is all why our business case and funding for the new hospital is contingent not only on not only on the fact that we are building these 48 hospitals, but we really need to be focusing down on how we're going to build them and how it is going to be different to enable us to start creating that new market capacity, generating the interest in that market, and bringing everybody together to help to solve this in a collaborative way. Next slide, please. So just a little bit on how the program is going to be delivering across the next or until 2030. So we've the 48 trusts that are part of this program are categorized in across four different cohorts, starting with cohort 1, which is the schemes that are currently under construction, and then moving through to cohort 2s, which is really focused around on time and on budget. They are smaller schemes, they're more flexible in their delivery, and then moving through into pathfinders in cohort 3s and 4s. So pathfinders are going to be adopting more of our programmatic approach, whereas cohort 4s are going to be realizing the full benefits of the program approach. It's probably also important to mention here as well is the creation of our learning ecosystem. So what we're ensuring that we're building over time is the opportunity for us to be learning from all of our cohorts, all of our trusts, to create that learning environment so that we're iteratively developing our standards and our programmatic approach over time. Subsequently then being able to realize that building better, building faster, and then enabling us to leave that sustainable legacy. Next slide, please. So just going into a little bit more detail about the programmatic approach and the increasing benefits over time. If we just look at the right-hand side of the slide and across the top, it shows our cohorts 2 to 4, demonstrating within the shaded colors of purple there, the programmatic benefits increasing over time. And then down the left-hand side, showing the different stages or the different build stages, starting with from the bottom up with the clinical strategy, moving through into that operational state for our trusts, and then the degree of centralized control from our guiding and challenging with trusts through cohort 2 and some of 3, and then moving into that more managed and controlled environment for some of our cohort 3s and then into 4s. So showing that progressive central control and programmatic benefits increasing over time. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier before that a BAU process will not support us or not enable us to deliver in the time frame and in the quantity or the volume in which we're seeking to deliver. So how are we going to move from that BAU towards that long-term evolutionary approach? So that's looking at moving away from a bespoke bias approach, which is where we design in situ and construct in situ, which means that we're not able to capitalize on that standardized design or our lessons learned, but we're going to move into that standardized approach, creating that programmatic overlay and driving commonality and productionization across the program and across our trusts. We're moving away from that vertical market relationship, which engages with just the tier 1 market alone, into creating horizontal market relationships, providing more opportunity for suppliers to invest and suppliers to enter the market and engage with us. I see this area for me is particularly important, especially when we're thinking about our technology suppliers, because I think this is a real opportunity here for us to be able to look at that horizontal market relationships and how we can work together in this space to ensure that we're getting that appropriate design and engagement as early on in the build cycle as possible, and in the commercial and the procurement stages as early as possible, to ensure that we're building in as much benefit across this program as we can. So I think in this space there's a real opportunity for us to really be working together and engaging with you to understand how that might work. There's the movement from risk sitting within the market to a more equitable risk sharing opportunity, a holistic approach to value, and then obviously how we behaving and how we are behaving as a client, but creating that collaborative and client engagement, engage and manage from the center, enabling the market to collaborate and innovate, rather than a hands-off approach, which has typically happened in the past. Next slide, please. So therefore we see our role as providing the confidence to encourage investment from the market. So our role in ensuring that we are creating that attractive space, be able to provide the confidence to the market that it is an opportunity to invest, to collaborate with us, that we're here to align our objectives, focusing collective efforts on our joint challenges together. Next slide, please. And ultimately providing that funding in capital investment and manufacturing of hospital components, attracting new entrants, and ultimately fostering that innovation, bringing the right resources together to solve challenges in a safe contractual environment. So we're creating that competitive and innovative markets and widening the participation for suppliers. Okay, I got to that one quickly. So Matt, we're going to hand over to you now, who's going to give us much more detail about the digital strategy for new hospital program.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah. And for those that missed the introductions, if you joined us slightly late, I'm Matt Gardner, work with Sarah on the digital workstream as head of digital transformation. And I think you heard during the opening video and Sarah's presentation that one of the ambitions of the new hospital program is to really capitalize on that, what we call wave of innovation in healthcare delivery. And I think arguably there's nothing that sits more at the epicenter of that wave than the role of digital and technology, which is exactly why we're here today to talk to you about our purpose and vision for the digital approach of the new hospital program, and our intent to use this session as a springboard for future more detailed engagement with the market. So this part of the presentation is comprised of 4 parts. Firstly, we want to quickly explore where the new hospital program fits within the broader digital health and care landscape, recognizing that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Secondly, very eager to introduce the new hospital program's digital purpose and vision for what we call a connected intelligent hospital. Third, dig into what we think that success looks like in terms of giving an overview of the key principles behind an intelligent hospital. And then finally, hand back to Sarah just to talk through next steps and plans for further engagement. We can just go to the next slide, please. So the new hospital program is transforming the way we deliver healthcare infrastructure for the NHS. And we can only realise that ambition by recognising the crucial and critical role that digital has to play. So we very much see digital feeding into the realisation of that ambition in 3 ways. Firstly, it's all about integrating digital across the whole build cycle. So gone are the days where you would almost have digital as a bolt-on or as a footnote to the wider building of a hospital. This is all about integrating digital and technology throughout that build cycle at the design stage, so you can start understanding and capitalizing on different forms and schedules of accommodation. As an example, how do we maximize the use and efficiency of single occupancy rooms? Secondly, how does digital fundamentally transform user experience? So that's all about how do we simplify people's experiences of care, be it whether you're a patient, whether you're a staff member operating within the organization, or actually you're a family member connected to another person's episode of care. It's all about how do we capitalize on the huge volumes of data that we produce in routine hospital care. So we very much see an intelligent hospital as unifying those concepts of, or those core change enablers of the estate, and then digital and technology that you'd routinely generate through patient flow and care. So it's all about how do you join those two things together such that you end up with a proactive intelligent hospital operating environment, which enables you to sort of maximize resource use. And then thirdly, it's all about how do we enable and accelerate digital in the system. So this recognizes that in a modern environment, we've got integrated care systems where we need to realize the full benefits of longitudinal care pathways. It's all about how does digital in the context of a hospital connect with other component parts within the health ecosystem, so everything's more connected, and only by doing that can we deliver on that mantra of building better, faster and more sustainable hospitals that have a lasting legacy, for the generation today, but also for those that follow. If we can just go through to the next slide, please. So with that, we've got a series of underlying challenges. We've got a series of supportive policy trends and in-flight programs that the new hospital program very much builds on. So from a policy perspective, we've heard within the health infrastructure plan, for instance, that this is more than bricks and mortar. This is all about how do you capitalize on the value of digital technology and data sharing capabilities that are needed to provide better care for the public. That's very much within and at the epicenter of the health infrastructure plan on which the mandate was then formed for the new hospital program. You've also got the plan for digital health and care that sort of underpins the value of digital technology and data in terms of delivering healthcare in the 21st century. And then obviously you've got the national data strategy, Data Saves Lives, which talks about how the NHS must change in its use of data to help not just with future health service planning, but also providing a robust, efficient service for patients today. And then more broadly, we've got a series of complementary programs that exist in the national landscape that will very much leverage in our design and delivery of intelligent hospitals. We've got digital care models, which recognises that care pathways are redesigned to encompass new technology. But we've also got frontline digitisation, which is all about, how do we layer on additional technologies onto that electronic patient record to build in paperless at the point of care environments and intelligent hospitals that meet the new hospital programme and wider health and care objectives that we heard of earlier. So that's very much the supportive policy landscape on which the new hospital programme operates. If we could just move to the next slide, please. So there's a series of challenges that the new hospital programme is looking to address. So delivering digital transformation is challenging. I think those on the call will be quite familiar that there are a series of unique challenges that digital traditionally is associated with, and that's no more so than in terms of infrastructure. In terms of delivering that in the context of the infrastructure life cycle, the new hospital programme has a unique opportunity to support trusts in navigating those historic challenges, and this just gives a quick example of some of those that apply all the way through that new hospital delivery. In essence, we see our role as forming into three distinct areas. It's all about one opportunity around definition, another around delivery and optimization. So opportunity one's all about how do we define what digital should look like in the context of new hospital? So what can we do to help accelerate standardization, but also provide robust guidance such that we build lasting national capacity capability to deliver new hospitals? Secondly, how can we help local trusts in terms of delivering on that vision? So how do we help them navigate this really complex tapestry of technology that sort of coalesces in these new hospitals? So how do we simplify the landscape, routes to market, potentially look at any opportunities to do something at scale? And then more broadly, how do we support optimization of the healthcare environment? And by that we mean, how do we ensure that technology is used not just during the construction cycle, say for instance, building information modeling, which is a fairly standard concept these days, but how do we leverage that once a hospital goes live such that we're creating mechanisms that enables hospitals to operate efficiently, effectively, productively, but also share some of that best practice with others so we learn. You heard from Sarah earlier that this is a learning program. We want to get better at this as we go through the process, and technology is very much part and parcel of that. So if we can go to the next slide, that sort of brings us to our defining purpose from a digital perspective, which effectively is a reflection on what some of those health and care landscape needs are of an NHS new hospital program digital approach. So our purpose is to define, deliver and optimize the intelligent hospital of the future for the NHS. And in essence, that's made up of a number of different parts. You've got the definition element, which we heard about earlier, which is all about how the new hospital program leads the healthcare ecosystem in defining what those standards are for an intelligent hospital. And we use standards as a loose definition. It's standards at a macro level in terms of these are the core capabilities that might make up for an intelligent hospital, but it's also those at a micro level that enable us to integrate different disparate parts of the healthcare system, building on some of the other standards that sort of emerge from the Chief Technology Office and others in the NHS. There's the delivery role or function, which is how the programme supports trust and ICSs to deliver on digital with targeted strategic commercial transformational support based on local needs. So this is all driven by local need. There's a role around optimization. So how do we optimize that digital hospital environment, creating a learning ecosystem that helps us drive value? And then more broadly, as we've sort of alluded to all through the presentation, there's this concept of how do we do that throughout that whole build life cycle? So how do you integrate digital from the very start, that RIBA, Royal Institute of British Architects stage 0 in construction terms, all the way through to operational delivery stage 7. And then ultimately, we're doing this for the NHS. So all of these policy objectives, these vision, these purpose statements, it's all designed to support trust in their delivery of health and care. And I think with that, if we could go to the next slide, we've got a sort of a vision that helps inform that, which is to transform and simplify the lives of patients and staff through connected intelligent hospitals that evolve in partnership with the health ecosystem. And then we've set that vision out because effectively it helps articulate the future state that we want to realise through an NHP digital approach. And again, this is made up of a number of component parts. We've got transform and simplify the lives of patients and staff. So that's, ultimately, how do we help improve the lives of those that interface with the new hospital environment? So what opportunities does digital confer to support patients and staff, guided by taking a more human-centered approach to hospital design through a hospital? So an example of that might be utilising a series of technologies to deliver the concepts of a digital front door that helps patients understand what type of operating environment they're going to move into before they get there. It might be also, leveraging some of the additional capabilities delivered out of the NHS app to signpost people based on the most appropriate service. But more important, also in a similar vein, how do we support staff to free themselves of some burdensome technology that you might find in an old environment? So how do we maximize, for instance, proactive building management through things like intelligent energy systems, intelligent building management systems, so you end up with that proactive intelligent hospital? Secondly, it's about connected intelligent hospitals. So our legacy is effectively the intelligent hospitals to have all the capabilities of a modern hospital and its needs, but not just for today, but also for the future. We're talking about assets here that span beyond 30 years. So the design challenge, as it were, that we're hoping to navigate with yourselves is how do we ensure that the definition and standards and the technology that underpins a connected intelligent hospital remain appropriate for today, but also tomorrow's needs. So that's all about, how do smart buildings gather and use data about patients and the buildings itself to optimize some of the processes associated with estates management and care? How do hospitals connect with the wider health and care ecosystem such that it supports some of those ambitions around integrated care, longitudinal pathways, and particularly around like preventative forms of healthcare delivery? And then thirdly, it's all about this evolution of a partnership with the health ecosystem. So intelligent hospitals exist as part of a broader health and care landscape. It's all about facilitating smooth transfers of care between the hospital and either back to primary care, so your GP, or into tertiary or community services. So it's all about how all of that comes together as a collective whole. So what we're advocating is free-flowing, accessible, secure data transfers that supports that growth of longitudinal pathways. And with that, on the next slide, we've articulated a series of intelligent hospital principles. So this is all about core guiding themes that sort of underpin that design, and there's 5 that in essence form this. So firstly, we've got digitally empowered patients, which is about how do we ensure that patients are more engaged, informed, and become active partners in managing and monitoring their health and well-being. So, but we referenced earlier, examples including the digital front door. That might also extend to self-check-in, digital wayfinding, and patient call-through applications that helps optimize how patient flow operates within the hospital. If I'm a patient coming in for a particular procedure, for instance, digitally enabled staff is concerned with making it easier for healthcare staff to equip themselves with the right tools and skills to help them focus on care. So the question here is, how do we help staff understand how they work and be more productive? So we can leverage capabilities like smart beds, automated dispensing cabinets, and smart scheduling rostering platforms to help maximize the use of resources and where they need to operate. There's also the challenge around how we better connect staff to work together. So care is increasingly delivered via multidisciplinary teams. How do we connect those people together to enable them to provide the best care for an individual? So you've got all of the right skill sets where they're needed, and we very much see that manifest as digital whiteboards. There's a series of remote monitoring platforms that come together that supports that whole longitudinal integrated care, but also what types of devices need to connect patients together without relying on perhaps some of the legacy technologies of yesterday, such as bleep infrastructure and other examples. And then fundamentally underneath all of that, let's remember these assets are exist in the community for over decades. That's our measure, not years, decades. The question is, how do we ensure that technology works for staff? So what types of infrastructure do we need to ensure is weaved into the very fabric of the building, so it's intrinsic to the building, that enables technology to exist on top of that works for patients, staff, and others that use the service? These are very much community hubs. So this is all about leveraging 4G, 5G advances in terms of mobile cellular private networks. It's about having pervasive wireless, ensuring that you've got fiber optic network backbones because you're chucking increasing volumes of data around the healthcare system. I think the third item in this is around hospitals are without walls that support integrated care. So how do we create that perception for our patients of one NHS, which has a series of smooth care transitions? So we might do that through digital transfers of care, a digital front door, but also using self-check-in instances. And then how do we fundamentally support patients to have the right care in the right operating environment, which is exactly why we've got some of those close interdependencies with other national programs. Mentioned digital care models earlier, as well as frontline digitization. That's all about how we leverage remote monitoring, virtual assistants, virtual wards, to ensure that we're getting the right throughput in hospitals and ensuring that patients receive the majority of their care in the operating environment most suitable for their needs. We've got at the bottom here, smart buildings. So we said earlier in the presentation, the new hospital program's USP almost is that unification of those core change enablers of what you can do from an estates and facilities perspective, and then what you can do from a digital and technology perspective. So how do we leverage our building assets better to deliver facilities that empower patients, enable staff, but also enable them to hit things like the net zero carbon agenda? So how do we use energy better? How can we look at proactive use of resources, such as around room scheduling, occupancy rates, and so forth? It's all about integrating those different insights. And this is where technology examples like Internet of Things sensors come into play. So you can monitor, for instance, I don't know, the pressure within certain pipe work, monitor whether rooms are actually occupied, because then that can be linked in with motion sensors, for instance, that enables you to reduce your energy consumption based on lighting. Those are just a number of examples. And then finally, all of this sort of comes together quite nicely as a interoperable intelligent system. So this is all about, what type of data platform do you need to leverage all of these different insights? So then you have a hospital operations command center that very, very much has a complete overview of everything that's happening operationally, but also from a smart buildings perspective to make informed, proactive decisions, less reactive. So this is all about how do we integrate all of those disparate systems together. Integration's a very, very big topic on this agenda if we're going to realize this vision, but also how do we effectively deliver more efficient estates by leveraging some of the advances that we've seen more recently in digital technology. And I think just sort of rounding that off, then this brings me to the next slide around how we've been thinking about technology. And some of you may have already seen this sort of taxonomy play out in previous documentation that's been issued by the new hospital programme, but we very much think about technology in 3 foundational categories, which is this concept of fabric, footprint, and flow. And this is really just conceptual, but it helps us think about how to try and segregate or get some sense of categorization around the sheer amount of technology that goes into sort of these programs of work. So we've got fabric, which is predominantly focusing on technology that's intrinsic to the building itself. So that's all about how do you deliver the essential enabling infrastructure of a smart hospital. Referenced earlier, the need for investment in the core infrastructure. It's not necessarily the most, the most innovative types of technology that you might see at that level, but that's the foundation, the backbone on which you base everything else. So it's really important that we get that. It's also one of the key areas where we see the smart buildings and the optimization of flow sort of coalesce together. You've got footprint, which is all about those technologies that connect the hospitals with the care settings. So we've referenced patient experience, connected care dimensions within this with a few examples. And then flow is all about those that come together to support the flow of information across the clinical pathway, but also the flow of patients and staff and their families through the actual facility. So that's where you see earlier examples around traceable patient journeys and learning predictive systems sort of really come together. So that's a very, very quick articulation of the purpose, the vision, how we've sort of started to think through what this technology landscape looks like, how we can leverage some of the benefits that technology enables us to do in terms of flow, smart buildings. And I think with that, if we could just go to the next slide, Sarah, I was just going to hand back to yourself maybe to talk through some of the priority areas for further engagement.
Yes, thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. And so yes, what next? So we're prioritizing 4 areas for further consideration. So how do we want to engage, and what is important to us at this time? So we've been looking at internally through the work that we've been doing over the past sort of year to 18 months, we've been looking at how we develop an optimal packaging approach. So that's about that sort of commercial packaging approach to market, etc. And so initially what we're keen to do is start opening that up and having those conversations with yourselves in terms of whether they make sense, whether it, just sort of feeling getting that feedback and that collaborative kind of working together to sort of help us to finalize that route to market. So that will be part of some of our next engagements, is understanding that, and then, like I said before, how that aligns or dovetails into some of the other thinking we've been doing around alliance modeling and that horizontal, moving into that horizontal kind of approach to market. The next one is about enabling innovation. So all fully aware that technology moves at quite the pace, and what we know to be true today, already there's new technologies that are coming through in the next sort of 3-5 years time, maybe even further out than that we already know that's happening. So we want to be able to engage to ensure that we are understanding what innovation is coming and that we are staying ahead of that, and that the standards and guidance that we're developing for the trust within the program continues to maintain that pace, and that we're also reaching out globally as well with yourselves to make sure that we are keeping up on trend with the new trends in healthcare from a global perspective, and what are the lessons learned out there, and how can we connect and create that partnership, not just within the UK, or within the UK, but also how do we create that partnership from a global perspective. Clarity on digital standards. So we've talked a lot about our developing digital strategy. There's a lot more to do, and there's a lot more standards that we need to develop as the program continues to mature. So working with yourselves as well to qualify that and to ensure that the standards that we're putting in place make sense, that it's going to work, that we've thought about everything, and then just really looking at getting that feedback and ensuring that we are being as progressive as we possibly can. And then finally, it's about help us to help you, I guess, is one of the things I was thinking about earlier on today. But it really is what we want to hear from you in terms of how what you need from us to help support your existing clients, for example. Well aware that I'm sure quite a lot of you already are incumbents in trusts and have large existing contracts or working with trusts on their digital strategies, and therefore it would help for us to work together in that space to make sure that you have what you need to be able to build those strategies with your clients and to help guide where necessary. So again, it's that developing that partnership, developing that collaboration. So there's a lot of work to be done. I know there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I can see that there are quite a few coming through. And we're very keen and excited to be engaging with you all in the next few months and years to come. So that brings our presentation to a close, I believe.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah and Matt, for two really excellent presentations. I mean, there's so much to go through there, and I've seen we've got lots of questions in the chat, and we've got about 15 minutes left, so we'll try to get through as many as possible. I think you had sort of a slide up talking about integrating digital into the build cycle, and a particular quote sort of stood out to me, making sure that we're past the point where digital is a footnote, and I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of the suppliers on the call here, and also the slide sort of setting out the principles. Again, I don't think anyone here will disagree with you, but I think in the interest of time, if we can sort of go through the questions that we've got. So Sarah, at the beginning, you sort of talked through timelines and whether all hospitals will be built at the same time or whether there's a phased schedule plan to bring them online. And I was just wondering if you could sort of go through that again, just for some of the attendees that might have joined a little bit later.
Okay. There is a phased approach across the cohorts, as we mentioned earlier. With the cohort 1s and 2s being sort of underway at the moment. I can't give specific dates at this time, but if we think about the fact that the program is over a 10-year period and that we're going to be moving through those cohorts across that 10-year period, then yes, there is a phased approach, and I'm sure the dates will become known as we develop those plans, but yeah.
Brilliant. And just going on to the next question. So this is tied to frontline digitization. So for some of the members on the call that might not be aware, we've been providing the secretariat function for the frontline digitization EPR working group for the past year. So if you'd like to find out more information about that, please do get in touch. There is actually a wider supplier engagement forum taking place on the 17th next week. You can find that on our website, and I can also add the link in the chat if you do want to register for that. But the question is, so how are you working with the various other programs mentioned, such as frontline digitization, to ensure coordination, particularly in communication to industry? Sarah, maybe we can come to you first and then go to you, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a governance perspective, is one of the ways that we are ensuring that we are aligning with frontline digitalization. So through our steering panels, we are ensuring that we have that attendance and that joined up approach, that we're working together, that everybody is fully aware of each other's agendas and objectives. So we're in continuous communication about that, and again as well, ensuring that we are not overlapping in terms of scope as well. So clearly creating that definition between the scope of frontline digitalization, and within our assumptions, what we are assuming is going to be in place in terms of capability and capacity, such as electronic patient records as an example, and therefore where our scope and our the scope of our technologies sort of start. So that is one place that we're ensuring that there's alignment and understanding between the organizations. I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to add a little bit more with your experience from NHSE.
Only that we're very acutely aware of our interdependencies that we have with other programs, none more so perhaps than frontline digitization. So we mentioned earlier, an electronic patient record almost provides a minimum digital foundation on which we need to build intelligent hospitals. So we're being very clear around what types of capability we need to realize that vision. You don't go into a 21st century new hospital scheme design planning the storage of a load of paper records, right? Those days I think have gone. So we're very clear around what types of capability we need to deliver some of the schedules of accommodation that we're currently talking about. Sarah's already sort of covered the governance side, but we have very close working relationships with some of the national leads in this space, and also we engage extensively with the cohorts and schemes. So some of that comes through because they're on the receiving end of national funding associated with both frontline digitization and the new hospital program. So we very much test that from both sides, both with national colleagues but also local systems.
Great, thank you both. And just moving on to the next question. So we've had a few talking about procurement, one particularly looking at what procurement frameworks you'll be using to bring any opportunities to market, whether you sort of be looking at digital capability for health, etc. I don't know whether it's too early to sort of reveal anything around that, but Matt, maybe I can come to you if you can give us an idea of maybe next steps and engagement on that.
I think that's probably one of the core areas where we're keen to engage. I think you heard from Sarah earlier that we're going through a process at the moment of understanding all of the business and technical integration that's needed to deliver this intelligent hospital. We're not going to go and procure 50 different capabilities to deliver an intelligent hospital. So some of these need to coalesce, because otherwise it's going to be an integration nightmare, referring back to the earlier standards and guidance element. So we're very much working with some procurement commercial colleagues that have also joined us on the call to best understand A, what that looks like, and B, how we then go about doing that. But very eager to test some of the early thinking, I think, through some of the subsequent market engagement sessions we've got, to see whether we've got that right. Have we completely understood all of the business and technical integration requirements to deliver this?
Brilliant. That would be great. And of course, we'd love to engage with you on that. And I'm sure lots of members will want to put themselves forward for that. But looking at other questions, so I see some members are saying that they're sort of actively engaging with a number of new build projects at different phases, but that they're sort of finding some reluctance to try new technologies. So they were saying they understand their position, but that may restrict future opportunities. So they were wondering whether you have any advice on how they can help these build partners to de-risk new tech opportunities. Sarah, maybe I can come to you for that one.
Yeah, I think that comes back to that opportunity that we're trying to create within the program to ensure that those kind of conversations and that are discussed and addressed at the beginning of the build cycle, at the beginning of the design, shall we say. And it's also probably the opportunity that we're creating within our alliance commercial approach as well, which is bringing where we were talking about that horizontal market space, and where we're able to bring these suppliers together in a collaborative way for them to develop a better understanding of how we can deliver that as a program. So that's about that how we need to do things differently to ensure we get the better outcomes and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. I don't think that we should be shying away from anything because of fear of things, but rather that we should be embracing that technology to ensure that the foundations are there to enable hospitals of the future. These hospitals have to be flexible and scalable over time, where they have to deliver the healthcare of the future and the demands. They have to improve in productivity. And the only way we're going to do that is by enabling it through digital technology. And it has to be the foundation of these buildings, and the buildings need to be smart buildings that enable intelligent hospitals. And we can't have that. We can't have that rich data unless we develop that digital foundation within these hospitals. But we have to find ways to do it and work together to ensure that we're not over engineering at the same time, so that it makes sense and that we can collaboratively work over this 10-year period to increase that digital capability over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it has to make sense for each scheme. So that's what we're going to be working on, and that's what we want to. That's the next steps, isn't it, in this program?
Brilliant. So I'm looking at other questions in the chat, and obviously we've got lots of members involved in the virtual wards work. So there's a question around whether you see virtual wards as essential to making care faster, safer, and to connect with the wider community. So I don't know, Matt, maybe I can come to you for that one.
I think in a word, yes. We've got to leverage digital care models, including virtual wards, remote monitoring, in order to improve productivity, efficiency, throughput of new hospitals. One only needs to look at some of the press headlines on any given day to understand some of the operational pressures that the NHS is under, particularly when it comes to occupancy rates. And I think the NHS has been quite clear around the role of virtual wards in terms of helping with some of that burden. And that's also true in the context of the new hospital programme. We are designing facilities here that, as we said earlier, have a decade's worth of shelf life, not years. So it sort of behooves us to incorporate concepts and innovations like virtual wards in some of that demand and capacity planning.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that will be really great to hear for everyone here on the call, and no surprise, as you're saying. So I think we've got about 5 minutes left, and there are lots of questions in the chat about engaging going forward, providing feedback on some of the principles that you, Matt, had on the screen as well, and sort of getting more involved in that work. So I think maybe at this point, I'll just hand over to Scott James Ely, who's joining us from the Supply Markets Management team, who's going to take us through next steps and also an upcoming event in December that we'd recommend you all register for. So Scott, over to you.
Good afternoon, thank you everyone. Yes, so I'm from the New Hospital Programme Supply Markets Management team. And first of all, I just want to kind of, in addition to what Sarah and Matt have said, thank you all for joining today. Thank you for some brilliant questions and fantastic engagement. As was mentioned earlier, I mean, this briefing today really is the first step in our market engagement that we plan to undertake with the digital market. This kind of early and extensive engagement is really a fundamental part of our approach to ensure that you in the market are having every opportunity to help inform and shape and validate our thinking. And we're delivering engagement through a number of different routes. Something that's coming up very soon and that we really encourage you to participate in is our flagship Industry Day. This is taking place on December the 13th. It's a hybrid in-person and online event. And this really is a fantastic opportunity to build upon this initial engagement here today and hear more about the programme's vision, mission and values, and really understand kind of the level of ambition that we have. But also it will be an opportunity to hear from people in the programme around things such as our design philosophy, exploring that transformation agenda in more detail, what that means in terms of clinical care and the working environment for NHS staff and the role that digital enablement has within all of that. Also, we'll be spending a little bit more time looking at our commercial approach. I know there's been quite a few questions here today about kind of route to market and procurement and things like that. But also we'll be talking about our program delivery scorecard. Now this is something that translates all of that ambition into some tangible themes and critical success factors. And that's what's really going to be used both during our procurement process, but also in delivery. So it's going to really help you understand what we're going to be looking for from our supply chain, going through that procurement process and then actually into deliver the contracts themselves. So we also, in the afternoon of that event, we're splitting out across a couple of different stages, one of which will be focusing around intelligent hospitals, and absolutely there'll be an opportunity to hear from Sarah, Matt, and some other fantastic speakers around the approach to digital. But we also will be looking at how we're going to deliver a sustainable legacy, so looking at kind of how we deliver economic, environmental and social sustainability as a critical part of this programme. So if you haven't already done so, do very much encourage you to sign up and attend that event, and we're very pleased to see you there. In addition to that, there are a number of other things that you can do to keep in touch with us. Sorry, if you just flick back once more. First of all, any questions that we haven't been able to pick up today or anything else that occurs to you, please get in touch with us. Use our dedicated nhp.suppliers@nhs.inbox. Send us any queries or questions at any time on that, and we'll do our best to get back and respond to you quickly and efficiently. Other things we would really much like you to do, if you could move on to the next slide, please, is if you haven't already done so, please register with us using our smart survey. There's a QR code there on screen. That enables us to capture information about you and your organization, so we can get in touch with you to make sure that you hear about our market engagement events that are appropriate for your kind of business. So yeah, please do that if you haven't already done so. That is a great way to make sure that we're keeping in touch and keeping you involved. Equally, I encourage you to download and read our supplier guide. Again, that's available through that QR code. That gives you a really good idea around some of the themes we've spoken about today, and is a great guide to the program and what we're going to be looking for from our supply chain and how you can engage in the future. And then finally, there are a number of questions today around procurement, what's happening when, what schemes. If you download our commercial pipeline, again, that gives you a forward view of what's going to market when and what's been awarded. It's something we'll update frequently, so make sure you keep coming back. And equally important, if you're looking at potential sub-supply chain opportunities, you can see who we've awarded our tier 1 contracts to, and therefore can see where there might be subcontracting opportunities as well. So yeah, please use those assets and use the email address, and hopefully we'll see some of you at our industry day on December the 13th.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Scott. So lots of opportunities to engage there. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will share the slides afterwards. So don't worry if you haven't been able to capture this info, we will share it in an email afterwards. So I think we've got about a minute left. I think, Sarah, Matt, I just wanted to come to you for some final remarks, and then we will wrap up after that. So Sarah, let me start with you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And yes, I mean, I think we've said it a couple of times, but we do appreciate your engagement today. And I do look forward to meeting some of you at our industry event. I think I want to second the encouragement for you to attend that, because I think and if we can do it in person, that would be brilliant, because I think that just adds to that ability to create those partnerships, and looking forward to working with you all into the future. So thank you very much again for attending today.
Thank you, Sarah. Matt?
Just to echo really the comments from Scott, James and Sarah, really thank you for taking the time to listen to our introduction to the new hospital programme and our digital purpose and vision today. Very eager to engage with you at future events on perhaps more specific topics as the sort of process unfolds, and look forward to hopefully meeting a number of you on the industry day. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your excellent presentation. Thank you to the Supply Markets management team, to Scott, Jack and Rachel as well for helping us organize today's event. And of course, to all the members that attended. As I mentioned, we will share the slides, the write-up, the recording. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to me. You should all have my email address. But otherwise, hope you all have a lovely evening. And thank you once again for joining us today.